Give you a hug, too. Yeah, okay, yeah.
No hug for me?
We'll see. We'll see.
Well done. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
How many of you know that in addition to being our senior minister and fearless leader, Richard Bunch is also the chairman of Unity Worldwide Ministries? All right. Kind of a big deal. So we wanted, from the board perspective, to get it, because there's a lot that goes into it. And so we wanted him to have a chance to kind of share it with all the rest of us and take us a little bit along on this journey. So firstly, belated congratulations.
Thank
well
you.
done. It's not everybody who gets to hold the most important job in the movement.
I don't know if it's most important, but the job.
Well, anyhow. And in a real way, he's bringing us with him, and the recognition that Richard has for his leadership, et cetera, kind of flows back on you. Oh, you're Richard, Unity of Richmond, right, and vice versa. So it's a pleasure. And even though we know that you're chair of Unity Worldwide Ministries, we don't always necessarily know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So we know Unity's headquartered at Unity Village.
Mm-hmm.
But how do all those bits and pieces fit together? How does the Worldwide Ministry and Unity Village, and what are you actually chairman of?
That's a great question.
I'll try.
Does anybody have an... No, anyway. Unity has two major organizations that come together to be Unity overall, internationally. One is called Unity World Headquarters, which is stationed in Unity Village. It is not what I am a part of, although I'm indirectly a part of. And Unity World Headquarters is mostly interested in silent unity, where we have about 3 million phone calls come in a year. So it's into that. The grounds are massive. There's 1,400 acres, lots of beautiful buildings that need repair and help, and so they are very much into that. And then they are interested in retreats and also in helping us, and this is where we're coming together as an organization more and more every day, helping us to reach unity throughout the country, throughout the world. And so we're doing joint projects that are just starting up. For the first time in 50 years, we're doing joint projects where projects where we're working together and celebrating life and reaching out into the community. The most recent one we did here was we had a cancer brochure and package, and we handed out 75 of them. And some of our folks here who are wonderful survivors of cancer helped us do that and get them in the right places. And so we distributed those packages to folks. There's another package coming out the first of the year. I've forgotten what the title is, but anyway, there's another one coming out, and we'll be distributing those. So that's a small way. And then we're looking at major ways that we can help. Unity Worldwide Ministries is an organization that's membership-driven. Unity World Headquarters elects its own board of directors. So the board of directors nominates and elects its own group. So they really don't answer directly to anybody other than their board. We have a membership at Unity Worldwide Ministries, and our major goal is to serve the needs of the members. That we serve Unity ministers, we serve Unity Ministries, and we work together to create this world that's spiritually enlightened. That's really what our goal is. And that's a lot to bite off. And so it's the organization that provides member services. It provides, we have an educational arm now. About 3 years ago, Unity Headquarters called us on the phone when we were in a board meeting and said, we are no longer going to have an educational program at Unity Village, and you take it over. And there's no money to go with it, but you take it over, okay? Because what they had done is they'd gotten down to about 6 students. And what you had to do is to go to Unity Village and live there, which Vicki and I did, to go through this process of being ordained. And what we did is we took it over, we stopped that, and we went online. And it took us about a year, and I was on the core team for that, to develop the educational program online. It also was pretty expensive because we paid $250,000 just for the platform to be able to have it online worldwide. And so we got that set up, and we started a year ago, a little more than a year ago now, holding classes. We thought we would have 50 to 100 people in the first classes. We've ended up with 300 people in the classes during the first year. So it's been extremely successful in any way you look at it. It's brought in an additional $500,000 of income, net income, to Unity that we didn't have before. So it's been a blessing, and that's another major operation. I think it is the future of Unity, to be honest, along with continuing to serve ministries and ministers. So that's kind of what we're set up to do, okay? And so we're two separate organizations.
So I think we touched a little bit on the educational piece, but I'm curious, are there other things that are, so if I wanted to become a Unity minister now,
Yep.
one of the things that we touched on the first service was a cost differential, and
Yes.
part of that started with the
Yeah.
Detroit folks and the
Yep.
urban ministries.
Yeah, when I went to school, it cost about $20,000, $22,000 to go, so it was $44,000 for Vicki and I in a 2-year period, plus your living expenses. It got to us, so it was about $27,000, $28,000 to do the same thing, and I could go online to what we call Emerson or to CSL, which is the religious science group, or to other organizations, and I could do it for $9,000, $10,000, okay, become a minister. And so what we've done is we've changed that in our online, so a person can take anywhere from 3 to 7 years to become a minister. They go online to do that. They apply for the ministerial program at some point, and it costs them probably, if they didn't get any scholarships, it would cost them probably around $10,000 to $12,000. If they have scholarships, it could cost them as little as $5,000 during the whole period, just according to how the scholarship money holds up, which has been extremely good for a number of years. So that's a process. We also have the urban school, which is in Detroit. That's an online school. Valerie went through that. Patty Bittner went through that because there were no online courses until the urban school started it. It's been very successful with the program. We now are working together for the ordination and for the graduation of people from all of the different walks that get us to ordination. There is an ordination path that I helped start, which was the alternate ordination path. These were for people who had been in churches 3, 5, 6 years, who ran successful churches as licensed Unity teachers or as who had degrees from other seminaries of other paths, other denominations that were in Unity now, teaching Unity. And so we had a process for that. We ordained about 15 or 16 people that way. And we have more to go. And then we have field licensing, which Peggy went through. And field licensing was a 3 to 4 year program, at one time 5 years, where you went to the Unity once a year and spent a couple weeks there and had a mentor and did a lot of work during that time and a lot of work in the church. So we're revamping all that now to make it a little simpler and to try to bring people in as easy as possible, but make sure they have the credentials to be Unity ministers. So that's what we're doing, 3 to 5 years, 7 years, whatever.
That's what I'm hearing. I mean, it sounds like it's a much more accessible process.
Much more.
At this point than
Yes.
it was before.
Yeah, we went from 60 candidates, or 6 candidates, to 40 candidates we have now in the mix.
One follow-up question, just because it came up afterwards. Is it still possible to get ordained through the village process or not at this moment?
No, the village has shut down totally.
Got it. It's all come over
It
to
all
Unity Worldwide.
came over to Unity Worldwide, which is where it should have been personally anyway, I think.
All right. We've heard you talk about you and Vicky's time in El Paso and the growing Latino population there. But I've also heard that there's large Unity congregations in Puerto Rico. We heard as a result of the hurricane that there had been some damage and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about both the growth in the Latino community and sort of Unity internationally?
I think most of us know that's the fastest growing segment in our country. And we have to pay attention to it because they, like us, are children of God. And I don't mean they, that they're different. They are children of God, period. When I was in El Paso, when I started there, Vicki was not in ministry then, we had 25% Hispanic, and we had about 75% Anglo, white. And when I left, we were 76% Hispanic and 24%, well, about 20, less than 20% white or Anglo, and we had about close to 10% were African American. So a really mixed congregation there. But it reflected the community, which it should have. And so what's happened is that we have, about 2 years ago, we put together an international organization, international advisory board. And we had an interesting situation. We would try to have meetings, but did you know that some of those folks spoke a language other than English? And they get up at a different time than we do? It was amazing. So trying to put meetings together was absolutely impossible. So this year what I asked the task force, I set up a task force, and we are looking at how do we start with the Hispanic community first and set that up so we're talking together. Dominican Republic, Colombia. We think maybe there's a start in Cuba right now. We're not sure. We have Miami. We have New York. We have Puerto Rico and some of them are really large. I mean, there are more than 1,000 people go to those churches. So it's a wonderful, wonderful market, target market. It's something I haven't quite figured out how we do it here, but it's something we need to do over time. And so we're starting with that community and bringing it together and starting to communicate at the national level and international level so we can see how we can support one another. For example, I met with about 20 of the ministers during World Day of Prayer, and I had to have an interpreter. And a lot of them from the United States, okay? And so sometimes we think if somebody is Hispanic and lives in the United States, they speak Spanish, or they speak English, but they don't. What I found out was the reason we don't have more representation on our national convention is because, one, our website is all in English. Number two, if you want to register for the convention, you have to be able to read and speak English. And there were a lot of people who didn't. And so that's why we were not having more attendance, except on an irregular basis, of our Hispanic members. And so we've done a couple of things. We were going to have an interpreter at all the meetings next year, which we've never had before. We are going to, actually we're in the process of having the sign-up site for the convention, which is in June 11th through 16th of this coming year, 2018. And we're going to have that all in Spanish. Up to now it's been in English. And so we're making changes when we're aware. And sometimes it's just not being aware. And those folks really, really helped me understand what they were challenged with and why there would be some frustration from them about what Unity Worldwide Ministries is doing. So we're excited about stepping into that and making a difference.
Cool. Say a little bit about the help that's going to Puerto Rico and the congregations there.
Sure. Puerto Rico, Texas, and the Texas southwest part where Harvey hit. Harvey was a hurricane, by the way. I know we've all forgotten it, but it was a hurricane, pretty bad. And then Puerto Rico and Florida, all. We have set aside $5,000 grants, up to 20 of them. We probably would do more if we had to, but up to 20 of them to give to churches to help them refurbish. And some churches lost everything in their building. Some churches were flooded slightly. Some lost a roof, that kind of thing. And so we're doing that, and it's a grant. It is not a loan. It is a gift to support it. We've never done anything like that before. But the reason we can do it is because 6 years ago, we owed $100,000 to a bank, and we were borrowing the money to meet our operation costs. And today we have $2 million in cash, of which $1.5 million is not designated. And so we're able to do things like this for the first time to really serve our communities and our ministries in a different way than we have before.
So you don't become chairman of Unity Worldwide Ministries just because, like, you have a pretty face and a
well,
nice
that's one of the reasons.
Yeah. What's little bit about how you got there?
Well, it's I was Eastern Region President and Treasurer of Eastern Region, and so got some notice by that, met some people, and after I came off the Eastern Region, I really didn't want to serve the national level or the regional level any longer, just because it took a lot of time, more than I thought it would, especially Eastern Region. And so they asked me to join the board, nationally, internationally, and I said no. And they asked me again, and I said no. And they asked me again, and I said, well, okay, I'm going to see if the president of the board at that time and Vicki would agree. So I knew Vicki was going to say, forget it. And she said, I think that's wonderful. You ought to do that. And the board chair says, how much is it going to cost us? And I said, very little, if anything. And she said, let's do it. So it was a 2-3 vote. And I honored the majority. I went on the board, and I'm very, very glad that I did. I went on the board when things were changing. We had a new CEO. There was a culture change that needed to take place. And so we've managed that, and we're going through that. It's still parts of it we still work on, but the culture change basically is that UWM is here to serve the churches. The churches are not here to serve UWM. Now that might sound like common sense, but believe me, there was a culture that said, you churches ought to be taking care of us, and we're going to get mad at you if you don't. Sounds unbelievable, it was truth. And so that culture has changed. And we have a new CEO, Donna Johnson. And by the way, she is the spokesman for Unity. I'm not. She is the person that runs the staff. I don't do that. I work and I speak on behalf of the board, and I speak as chair of the board, but I am not in charge of staff or anything like that, and very gingerly make recommendations when I make them about changes that might take place in the staff.
So it's interesting. I mean, you actually are sitting in a dual role, because here, right?
Just the opposite.
You are
Yep.
is exactly the opposite.
Right.
So that's kind of cool. Highlight of your time as chairman so far?
I think the most exciting thing for me is something I've had in my mind for a couple of years, is that we have appointed a task force. It's called the Forward Focus Task Force, and Forward Directions, if you would. And what we're looking at, and in the bylaws, it says that the one job that the board has responsibility for is casting the vision out into the future. A staff normally looks at the next 2 years, sometimes not even that far, but the next 2 years to 3 years. An organization like ours has to really look out into the future. So we have 16 people that I appointed to a team, and a chair, and Julie Armour, and she's a past chair also of Unity. And they are talking to individuals who have particular backgrounds in looking into the future, thinking about the future, who are doing some things that are different already. We have about 12 or 13 of those folks we're going to be interviewing. We've interviewed one so far, and I've mentioned a couple of things that he said. So we're looking at what is it going to look like 10 years from now. What do we have to do to be in a position to continue this message 10 years from now? And how is that going to change? And it is going to change significantly. I think we'll still have a Unity of Richmond here, but we have to change and become a creative center where we are willing to support people as the change takes place in our country. They're saying that we're going to have the biggest change since 500 years ago in the next 15 years. And, you know, that's kind of mind-blowing. When you think about the iPhone came out 10 years ago. And all of us kind of think, oh, okay, fine, you know, smartphones, yeah, no big deal. But I'll tell you that when I was 25 years old, if somebody told me I would have had one of those, I would have laughed at them. I couldn't have understood it, or the internet was going to be available. And we're going into the 5th generation of the internet that's now being brought forth, and it's going to make huge changes in our lives. And
Funny,
I know
I was in
Sure.
I was in a situation where someone who was a surgeon was talking about how impossible it was to do surgery without the internet these days.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so,
Doesn't that make you feel good? He gets his iPad out, checks it out, and says, okay, let's do this.
But the
it's
flip
true.
side is what happens if you happen to be someplace where you don't have the internet.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But
Oh,
anyhow.
yeah. Absolutely.
So in addition to everything else that you're doing, right, as chairman, you also are organizing a conference, right? You
Yes.
mentioned it sort of in
Yes.
June.
really organizing one now.
Right. So can you tell us a little
Sure.
bit about the focus of that, and can we go?
One, you can go,
Okay, good.
but
I
you have
wanna
to
go.
pay.
All
But
right.
anyway, you can go.
Do we get a
You can work
Unity
out
of
corporate.
Richmond, we're the chairman's congregation discount?
Oh yeah, I think it's 1%. I'll
Okay,
take care
good.
of that. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, I could handle that. Anyway, what's happening on June the 11th through June the 16th, just outside of Kansas City, near Unity Village, is we are having our annual conference. Our annual conference usually has 400 to 600 people there, depending on the year and what's going on, how excited people are about something. And this conference is going to center on having the courage to imagine the future. And what is that going to look like? And we have speakers who are supporting us in that. We have John Peterson, who is a futurist, probably one of the best futurists in the country, some people feel, and has a personality too, which is really nice, a good personality. And then we have Clarence Preston, I think his last name is. He is the African American who had a large mega church in Denver and got caught up in New Thought and started to share it with his congregation. And for some unknown reason, he lost his job, and the whole church came apart at the seams. He now is kind of a crusader for New Thought and how we have to change and that type of thing. He'll be speaking. He's a great speaker. A guy by the name of David Alt, who's spoken at Unity before, is also a great speaker, but looks into the future as he works on the work that he's doing. We have Aaron McCabe, who's probably 40 years old now. Aaron is the minister at Unity Village Chapel, and she comes in with lots of new and different ideas. She'll be speaking. I'll be speaking, and we will be talking, and we will be graduating, by the way, for the first time. We will be ordaining and graduating the people who come out of all these different ways in which to become a minister, okay? That's never happened at a conference before. So we're really excited about that. And then we have breakout sessions, that kind of thing. But anyway, I would love for each and every one of you to be there, but I would love for a group certainly to be there to represent Unity of Richmond, and I would appreciate that.
So it's on my calendar, and some of us can just pick up and fly, and that's lovely. But I remember from my days in YOU that it's easier sometimes for folks to drive. The kids will go for IYOU. They'll go out to the village, and they'll drive, and they'll take a stop overnight. And for those of us that might not have it to fly in June, maybe we can do that. But I think it would be. I'm personally committed to being there. Haven't been to the village, and would love to support Richard in this endeavor. The last thing that I'm going to say is this is an interesting year, because this is a busy year for Richard. I mean, the reason that we did this was to give everybody a sense that he's really kind of doing two things. He's doing us, and he's doing the movement. So on the one hand, we're kind of lending him to the movement, and on the other hand, he's getting all of this amazing information and ideas and thoughts and things like that that'll come back to us here at Unity of Richmond and really help us build and grow, right? I mean, this is like the cutting edge stuff that's happening in the movement. Richard's part of it. We're part of it. And I really want to thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
And, thank you for taking the time to share, and
My
God
pleasure.
bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I thought maybe we would open it
Oh,
up.
we did.
Didn't it?
Yes,
Right? That's
sorry.
okay.
Right.
So are there
We're
any-
done with this part?
Yeah. At
Now it's
9
your
o'clock, a
turn.
few people wanted to ask questions. So is anybody
Yeah.
would like have a question that they'd like to ask? Tori.
Do you see Unity in the future, I don't know how to phrase it, but kind of taking a stand on some social issues?
Yes. We are doing more of that now.
Sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the question is, do you see Unity taking a stand on more social issues going forward in the future?
Yes. And we always want to take a stand, as you know, that is positive, that's for something, like stand up for humanity. That's taking a stand. There are other social issues that we're looking at and will continue to, and we'll be taking a stand. That's going to upset some people. We know that. We took a stand on being green, and we got a guy who sent us a letter and saying you're getting political. So what we have to do is be very clear that the stands we take they are social issues, not political issues. And there's nothing that I can name that's not a political issue in today's climate. They will take it and run with it. Absolutely. But there are social issues that I think it's important for us to take a stand on, and to be involved in. If we're not out taking a stand and being with people who need support, like we do with Caritas here, if we're not doing that, we will close our doors someday. We really will. And I believe that that's part of our movement into the future. I really see Unity of Richmond as a creative center or a spiritually creative center. And think about it, that's a little different, okay, than just having a church and meeting on Sundays. That's working with people, and the change we're going to go through. And I believe this with all my heart. I'm already seeing pieces of it, little pieces that I didn't even aware of. But the changes we're going to go through are going to be mind-boggling. And that is going to create a great deal of opportunity to support people, everything from pastoral counseling to groups here that are meeting regularly. I see us having groups on a regular basis coming in here, being creative. People are going to have more time in the future. What do they do with their time? And we can be that center, and we can make that difference. And the other thing, as you asked that question, Tori, is that Unity has to reach out to other organizations and other Christian denominations that are in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish. We may not agree with the theology, but we can always agree on what are we trying to create together that will make a difference in the world. And we've got to get out of this bubble that we seem to be in, have been in the past, and into being willing to align with somebody who's different but has the same major goal.
So I'm hearing you say both at the congregation level, but also at the movement level.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
all
definitely.
Right, terrific. Other questions? Yes, in the back. The question is, how do you prioritize your work at both of these entities? Because you've got a lot going on.
Well, if the phone rings, I take care of it. I'm fortunate enough that I've got some idea of my travel schedule, and the board's been kind enough to say I could be off once a month if that were to work out to speak elsewhere. This coming week I will be away, this coming Sunday, and that's why Jenny Roll's coming in. And Jenny came out of this church, by the way. She started this church as a Unity minister. But basically, I have Daphne and Nancy who helped me do that tremendously. I probably spend 20% of my time in what I would call a 50 to 60-hour week working with UWM on phone calls, conference calls. Right now, we've had a couple of things happen, so that I may have to spend a little more time, but that we'll get through that. There are two priorities that I see. One is doing what I promised to do and following through on that. The second is here, being available. And so for the next few months, I am here most every day, except maybe on the weekends, but I'll be here just about every day. So what my intention is, and I'm setting this up, and Daphne said, if you get a phone call, I want you to know, I am asking her to call folks to come in and just talk with me. I think it's time for that. It's been a while. When Vicki and I first got here, we asked everybody to come in and talk to us, and a couple of people they said they'd never been in the minister's office, so they thought they'd done something wrong. But anyway, I'm asking people to come in and talk. Just talk. What's going on in your life? You know, what's happening? So we are connected. And I always want you to know that the door is open for counseling, for sharing, for new ideas. And what you're doing really well here is operating as teams overall. And the teams are pretty much running themselves. I'm not in every team meeting. I can't do that, so it has to be a little change that way. But I'm pretty good at prioritizing my time. It may not look like it to others, but I am, because I'm pretty good at compartmentalization.
And the good news too is that as chairman, right, you've got staff, so you've got policy pieces, but they're actual hands to do some of the work to get it done, right?
Oh yes.
Right.
At the national level, we have a person who's out right now, but will be back soon, who is the board secretary in essence, and she takes care of all the calls and meetings, and I don't have to do any of that. So she tells me when to show up. And Daphne tells me when to show up. Between the two, it's working pretty good, Maggie. But it has its days, okay?
All right.
Any other
questions?
I think it's time to complete.
Indeed. So, Richard, again, thank you very
Yes.
much for all you do. And
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you.